Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Shamir Abdulaziz, and I'm a lead PM on the Azure SRE Agent project. And today, we are going to have a jam-packed session that will help you see how the Azure SRE Agent is going to help resolve issues even before your users experience it. So let's get started. Like I said, it's going to be a demo-heavy session. I have a couple of slides to explain the concept. I'm going to talk you through what the SRE agent is and how we are going to use it to resolve an issue before you spot it. I think we've all been there, right? You've deployed a code to staging, tested it pretty well, you uncovered no issues, went back home, you're fast asleep, and suddenly in the middle of the night, you're woken up because there's a bad deployment. Hopefully, with the Azure SRE agent, it's going to be a thing of the past. And let's see how. The Azure SRE agent is an AI-powered Azure service. It's meant for diagnosing and resolving production issues. We do this by real-time incident response, and you can use the Azure SRE agent in 3 different ways. You can interact with it, much like a co-pilot, where you can query your resources, configure it, investigate it, and even deploy it. You can then also use it in the reactive mode, where you can handle alerts from Azure Monitor or incidents from PagerDuty or ServiceNow. And you have a custom runbook defined through the agent builder experience, where you can respond to those incidents in real time. And finally, proactively, we provide you best practice recommendations, security vulnerability reports. You can configure the agent to do anomaly detection proactively or send you other reports that are useful for your management. And finally, the most important part of the SRE agent is you can truly make it yours. So we provide you the capability to bring your own tools. We allow you to build the custom prompts and connect it to the tools and data sources that is important for you, so that the SRE agent understands the context and troubleshoots the issues. With that, let's jump into our first demo. In this demo, what I'm going to do is show you how the SRE agent is deployed and how you can use it. All right, first up, I'm going to show you how to deploy the Azure SRE agent resource. It's like any other Azure portal resource. You go to the Azure portal, you search for the resource, look for Azure SRE agent, and then go ahead and click on the Create button. Now, once you click on the Create button, you fill in the standard boilerplate values. You provide a subscription, you provide the resource group name, you provide the name for the agent. So I'm just going to name it .NET. Select the region. I'll select East US 2 for now, and then you can select the resource groups that you're interested in. I'm going to select the resource group that I set up for this demo, hit Save, and then hit on Next. So you can see now the agent has access to this resource group. I'm going to hit Next. And now you can configure the agent's permission level. You can configure it to be read-only, in which the agent then can only read and inquire about your resources. And for any action you need to take beyond that, the agent is going to prompt you for your approval, and then the agent is going to use your credentials to take care of that action. And then you have the privilege mode. When you select the privilege mode, the agent can take some write actions too. What actions it takes is based on all the resources we have identified in your resource group. And you can see all the permissions the SRE agent is assigning itself via its managed identity to access these resources. So I'm not going to hit Create here. I already have a resource created, so I'll show you what happens when we deploy an SRE agent. Once you deploy the SRE agent, what you see is the welcome thread. In here, you'll see what the SRE agent can do for you. It starts with telling you the resource group it understands, and then all the resources it found in that resource group. And then it gives you some starter templates on how you can interact with the SRE agent. I'll get to the chats in a bit, but before that, I want to show you another cool thing that the SRE agent does. So remember, when we deployed the SRE agent, we selected a resource group. Now, in that resource group, I had a bunch of resources. The Azure SRE agent automatically identifies these resources. In here, you can see there's a web app. It has a staging slot, and these 2 web apps are hosted in the app service plan with so-and-so name. And then it also has certain Azure alerts configured for it to send its instrumentation and telemetry. The only other thing that I did over here is I connected the GitHub source code repo by clicking on the GitHub configuration over here and provided the GitHub source code. Why this is useful is now the SRE agent has the context of the web app's source code, so it can do a lot more things. And then finally in this demo, what I want to show you is how you can interact with the SRE agent. Remember at the start I said you can interact with the agent. So this is that co-pilot experience. You could ask anything about your resources in here and it's going to try and answer those. So in here I've asked list all the web app and its health. And so you can see its thought process and the to-do plan it created. It said that I'm going to do an inventory of all the web apps and the subscription, gather the health indicators, and then provide a summary. And you can see that it did that here. So it found out all the web apps, found out the state, and saying the availability is normal. So that's pretty cool. So that's the first demo. Now let me switch back to my slides. And before I go into my second demo, what I want to show you is how I've set up the SRE agent for it to do what I talked about. That is, being able to identify an issue before it happens and fix it before an incident is created. So for that, let me just bring in my laser pointer. And on the left-hand side, what you have here is a standard app service, right? You have a .NET app hosted on Azure App Services. It sends its telemetry into App Insights, and we have some Azure Monitor configuration to fire alerts. In the middle is where the crux of the demo lies. We have the Azure SRE agent. It's powered by this agent runtime. This runtime is the main orchestrator for everything SRE agent. It connects all the tools, the data sources, the knowledge store, and can be triggered at will. How this works is the agent runtime has access to tools. So you can see in the lower right corner, we have built-in tools. Think of things like AZCLI, kubectl, ARM APIs, all of that. And so with those tools, you can inquire into your resources, configure, deploy, do many things with those built-in tools. We also have built-in tools for being able to query application insights or Custo clusters or Cosmos DBs. The runtime also has support for runtime memory, and so you can store knowledge into the knowledge store, and you can also bring in your own knowledge resources, whether it's in wiki or somewhere else. You can get that knowledge into the agent runtime's context. You could also bring in your own tools. So we have support for MCP. Now MCP allows you to add your own custom MCP server or a third-party MCP server. And all the tools exposed by the MCP server is going to show up as tools in the agent runtime. If you don't want to set up your MCP server, you could create your own tool within the SRE agent platform using the Python interpreter. We will help you write the tool you like, and then the agent runtime can call that tool at will. On the left-hand side of the runtime is the way you can trigger the SRE agent runtime. So we have an incident trigger that can be triggered based on an alert fired by Azure Monitor or by an incident that occurred in PagerDuty or ServiceNow. You can also trigger the SRE agent at will on predefined intervals with a scheduled task. So once the agent is triggered, then you can make it respond to those alerts or triggers using your own custom runbook. And this is how you truly make the SRE agent yours. So we have the sub-agent concept on the upper right corner here. And for the demo, I have 2 sub-agents created, and I'll explain what those do in a bit. But the sub-agent is the way where you give the SRE agent a custom prompt and the list of tools that you want it to use, and then connect to the different data sources and systems for you to achieve your end goal. Now for this demo, what I've done is I have a scheduled task configured in SRE agent that queries the application insights for some telemetry. The telemetry that I'm pumping from the dotnet service is basically standard stuff like response time, CPU usage, memory usage. So this scheduled task every 15 minutes is going to go and query the application insights and then find out the baseline for the average response time in the last 15 minutes and then store it in the knowledge store so that the agent has access to that runtime memory. So that's the first part. And then what happens every time I deploy something to prod, a swap alert gets triggered in Azure Monitor, and that alert will trigger an incident trigger in SRE agent, and then the SRE agent will use the health check sub-agent to respond to that trigger. In the health check sub-agent, I've asked it to do a bunch of things, basically look if the current response time is beyond the baseline, and if so, then go ahead and do a swap operation and also go and search in GitHub source code, find out if there's any recommendations it can make on why the response time went up and create a GitHub issue. And then finally, we'll post all of these details of the deployment, the summary of the deployment into the Teams channel that we have set up. And then I also have another agent, which is a reporter agent, and its job is basically to look at all the deployment posts in Teams for the last 24 hours and then send an email to your management. So let's see how all of this gets in action. So let me jump into the demo. All right, the first thing I want to show you is the schedule task. It's configured to run every 15 minutes. You can see it has run a few times. Basically, it does pretty simple things. You can see the to-do plan here. It's run an application insights KQL query for the last 15 minutes and found out the baseline and store that baseline in the knowledge base. So you can see that it's run that query here, and then it's gone ahead and found out the baseline response time, which is 116 milliseconds. And so it goes ahead and stores it in the knowledge store. So that's out of the way. The next thing I want to show you is the alert that I've configured on Azure Monitor. It's a swap alert, pretty standard stuff. It fires a Sev4 alert when a swap operation happens on the app. All right, great. Now, so we have a scheduled task getting the baseline. We have an Azure Monitor alert firing when a swap operation happens. So how does the SRE agent use that? So the first thing you've got to do is configure the incident management platform for the SRE agent. By default, it's connected to Azure Monitor, so no extra additional steps are needed here. It understands all the alerts fired at a subscription level. If you wish, you could also change it to PagerDuty or ServiceNow, and more service providers would be added down the line. So you can handle any instance from those systems. All right, we have set up that, we have set up the alert. So now let's see how the SRE agent can handle that alert. So what you do here after you set up the Azure Monitor integration is you create a new incident trigger, and you do that by clicking on incident trigger here. And what you can see is a pretty straightforward thing. I have a name for the trigger, and it is going to use the deployment health check sub-agent, which we'll see in a bit, to respond to that alert. And it's configured to respond to any Sev4 alerts that have the word swap in it. So that's pretty much how you would set the trigger. All right, great. Now let me show you some of the already handled alerts by the SRE agent. So the first one is a pretty good deployment. So what's happened here is I pushed something to prod, and a swap operation happened, and that fired an alert. SRE agent got the alert, it handled the alert, and now what you're going to see is what it did to handle the alert. So in here, what you can see is it's doing a bunch of things. And I'm going to click on the to-do plan here, and you can see that it's querying the current response time from application insights. It's going ahead and looking up the knowledge resource to find out what was the baseline time added by the scheduled task. It compares the response time, see if it's deviating beyond what I've configured it to, in this case being 20%. And if it's beyond 20%, go ahead and do a swap and file a GitHub issue, and then finally post an update to Teams. And you can see over here, it's done all of that. It's found the baseline, it's looked up memory, and then it's come up with a summary that the current response time is 75 milliseconds, which is way under the original base time, 116 seconds. So no swap or GitHub issue was required. It was a healthy deployment. Awesome. Now let me show you the next alert that it handled. And in this, it was a bad deployment. So it does all of those things that it did earlier. So go up and look at the current response time. And then it determined that, oh, okay, swap executed at this time. And there was a 20%, a regression which was about 20%. The current average response time is 212 milliseconds, which is above the baseline by way too much. So it's going to go ahead and create a GitHub issue and post these updates on Teams. Let's see what the GitHub issue looks like. So the GitHub issue is basically summarizing all of that it found in that alert, all the metrics it found. It's going to add all of that information and then do a semantic search in the GitHub source code and then find out what happened. And see if there's anything in the source code that it can improve. So it goes ahead and adds a GitHub issue with all the recommendations it can come up with. And what's really cool is it automatically assigns it to GitHub Copilot. Now, you can see the GitHub Copilot has already started working on it. Let's take a look at how the GitHub Copilot helped us here. So you can see that it's made some code changes for which you can come back and review. So what did we just do here? So a bad deployment happened and something the response times became slow. The SRE agent acted upon it, identified there was an issue, swapped the deployment to mitigate the issue immediately, researched the code base, understood what areas can be improved to improve the response time, and created the GitHub issue, all without waking you up. You can come back to office the next day and then review this GitHub issue and see if the code is good, make changes if you wish, and check in this code and start a new deployment to ensure that the response time still stays in the healthy range. All right, so it's created the GitHub issue. GitHub Copilot has gone ahead and created the PR for you. You just need to review it. Now, for tracking purposes, what we're going to do is show all the posts that the agent made in the Teams channel. So here you can see, much like how you would collaborate in the real world, you would go ahead and post these updates about deployments and issues that happen on a Teams channel so that your colleagues can find out what's going on. So that's what the agent did here. It's providing all the details over here about the deployment, whether it was healthy or not. So there are a bunch of healthy deployments. You can see it as it's saying healthy. It also provides you the application insight query that it ran with the accurate timestamps, so you could go back and run these queries to see if the agent did the right thing or not, right? So that's a healthy deployment. Let me go and find an unhealthy deployment. I should see something down somewhere. Let's see, I think, yeah, this one was an unhealthy deployment. So in this case, you see the time after deployment was 212 milliseconds, way above our original baseline. And so it's going to say, I'm going to go ahead and do a swap, and it was an unhealthy deployment. Awesome. Finally, I'm going to show you the thread, the reporter thread, which is going to go ahead and send that email after analyzing all the posts on the Teams channel. So what you can see over here is the agent goes ahead and looks at all the posts from the Teams channel for the last 24 hours, extract the details, build an executive summary, and then compose a rich HTML email and send it to the email address I mentioned there. Let's see what the email looks like. The email over here is this. So it says that there were a total of 9 deployments in the last 24 hours. 6 of them were healthy, 3 of them had rollbacks, and it gives you a table with all the details right in there. So your management can understand what exactly happened, what issues were there, and how we mitigated those issues. All right, this is all cool. So I showed you how the SRE agent can do this for you, but how do you do this? So the next section of my demo is to show you how you can build these things. So the first thing we used was the schedule task. The schedule task is pretty simple. You click on create task here. I'll show you what I created here. It's basically, again, natural language. All of this is natural language. So you just type in instructions and the agent can make sense of it. Since this is kind of cluttered, I'm going to open it in Visual Studio Code, so it's better to read. So now you can see that the first step I have asked the schedule task to do is run this Kusto query against the application insights to find the average response time, and then extract those values and update to the knowledge store. So that's pretty much it. You just provide the schedule task a prompt and it should be able to do this for you. The next thing I want to show you is the subagent, the main subagent, which is the deployment health check subagent that gets triggered on a swap operation and then has access to all these tools to carry out the instructions you provided. How do you provide those instructions? You do it in this template over here. You just provide the instructions over here. It's going to follow those instructions and connect to the tools and do what you want. Again, because this is pretty small screen, I'm going to open it in VS Code and show you what it looks like. So I've given it a goal. I've told the subagent, your goal is to look at if the current response time is higher than the baseline. If so, swap the operation and then create a GitHub issue if needed and post a Teams update. I've given it information about the web app I'm interested in and the application insights that you need to query. And then I've given it tasks. So I've first said you connect it to application insights with the resource ID I've given above. Run this Kusto query, go ahead and update, look the knowledge store and find the information for the baseline. Pass those baselines, do a comparison, see if it is higher or lower than the existing baseline, and based on that, make a decision to swap or not. And then finally create a GitHub issue and post to Teams. And I've also given it a format for it to follow. So I've told that this is the format I want it to follow. So every time the agent posts something on the Teams channel, it's going to follow this format. So that's how the subagent works. Now, let me show you the reporter subagent. The reporter subagent is pretty straightforward, pretty simple, not a lot of things going on here. All it does is it gets the messages from the Teams channel and then goes ahead and sends an email. You can look at the prompt over here. It's basically telling that go and look up all the messages in the Teams post and then create a rich HTML mail. And I'll just show you what I've asked it to write in the email. The email is like an executive summary of how many deployments happened, how many healthy deployments, how many rollbacks were needed. And then make it look attractive with a tiles kind of format, and then use a table to provide this information as a summary. And you saw how the email turned out, right? So pretty simple. You just have to write it in plain English. It'll understand your commands and send out an email with the format you prescribed. All right. All this is cool. I threw a lot of it to you, but now how do you actually iterate with this, right? And we got you covered with that. You don't have to figure out how to write all these prompts. What you do is you just come into the playground, and this is available in the Builder experience, right? What you just do is you just provide a goal. And you can say the goal is, I want you to look at application insights, see if the CPU usage is high. If it is so, go ahead and scale it up. And you just do that, and then you click on Improve with AI, and it's going to create that entire plan I showed you in VS Code. It's going to create that YAML file with all the instructions step by step and suggest the tools that you want to connect to get this subagent working. And what's even cooler is that you can go on to the Test and Refine Your Agent tab and go ahead and ask it to run that agent for you interactively. So I can say, run a health check, and it's going to start the entire process that I just demonstrated, right? So it's going to go ahead and do that and come back with the results. What's cool with this is you can see how the agent is going to respond without making actual changes to the system. And then once it gets to the stage where you like it, you can connect it to the incident trigger that I showed you earlier, and then allow the subagent to use this response plan to trigger that for you. And that's what I had for this section of the demo. And let me switch back to my slides. So what did we see here? what we saw here is how you can use the Azure SRE agent to coordinate a response to an alert that was fired by Azure Monitor, and then make sure it responds to it using the tools and the plan that you provided, right? And it's pretty straightforward and simple because all are AI powered, and you have an agent builder experience to help you do that. With that, I'll leave you with some resources. I have a YouTube link over here. Use the YouTube link to catch us on all the great demos that we are posting, tool links to understand the product better, and you can also reach out to the SRE agent team. I provided you the email address, and you can connect with me on LinkedIn. We are looking to hear feedback, and we are iterating on this product pretty fast. We are currently in preview, and we want to go GA pretty soon. So more feedback and more experience we can hear from you, the better it'll be. And with that, that's all I had for today. Thank you.